Hey friends, what's up? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Lamed Aleph, Daf 31 of Masechta Megilla. Friends, Daf 31, we talk about different stuff that we read on different festivals. So, yeah, that's like basically what it is. So let's just kind of jump in over here. We are on Daf Lamed Amud Beis, about 5 lines from the bottom, at the Mishnah. Pesach Kohen Parshas Moados Shatoris Kohanim. So on Passover, we read from in Parshas Emor, where it talks about the different festivals. Ba'atzeres Shiva Shavuos, and on Shavuos we read the Torah portion, the Torah section, Shiva Shavuos, the 7 weeks. All right. Rosh Hashanah b'chodesh Hashvi be'echad l'chodesh. All right. On Rosh Hashanah we read in the 7th month, on the 1st of the month. Yom Kippur Achrei Mos, and on Yom Kippur we read Achrei Mos. B'Yom Tov Harishon Shel Chag Koren b'Parshas Moados Sheb'Toras Kohanim, and the first day of Sukkot we read from Parshas Emor, where it talks about the Yom Tovim, Uv'Shar Kol Yemos HaChag, and all of the rest of Sukkot. So b'Korbanos HaChag we read about the different animal sacrifices that we offer on that festival. B'Chanukah b'Nisim, on Chanukah we read about the different korbanos of the Nisim, when by the Chanukah Samizbech. B'Purim Vayovo Amalek. On Purim we read about Amalek Rosh Chodashim Uvrosh Chodshechem, and on Rosh Chodesh we read Uvrosh Chodshechem. B'Mahamados B'Maaseh Bereishis, and by the Mahamados, which of course we learned about Masechta Tainis, right? That they would sort of like pray and read from the Torah, while the korbanos were being offered in Jerusalem. So they would read about Bereshis. Okay. Betanios brachos uklalos. On fast days you read about the blessings and the curses. In mafsikim b'klalos el echad koreis kulan. We do not interrupt the curses. Rather, one fellow reads all of the curses. We don't interrupt. V'ashenu v'chamishu b'Shabbos b'mincha. When it comes to Monday, Thursday, and at Shabbos at Mincha Koren Kisidron, we just read like the regular, that week's Parsha. Okay? Like the upcoming week's Parsha. Ve'ein olim loim min ha'cheshbon, and what you read on those days doesn't count. Right? So like, on Monday and Thursday, even though you're reading the first aliyah of the upcoming Parsha, you still need to read the first aliyah on Shabbos. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Veidaber Moshe es Moadei Hashem b'nei Yisrael, that Moshe spoke the festivals of God to the Jews. Mitzvah shu korin kol echad v'echad b'zmano, that it's a mitzvah that you read about each festival at its time. All right. Says the Gemara. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Pesach korin b'Parshas Moados. All right. So in Pesach we read the about the festivals in Parshas Emor. Okay. Maftir Pesach Gilgal. Okay, and the Haftorah is Pesach Gilgal by Yoshua. And nowadays the Ikatrei Yomei, there are taka 2 days of Yom Tiv. So Yom HaKama b'Pesach Gilgal. So the first day the Haftorah is Pesach by Yoshua. L'mach b'Pesach Yoshio. And the next day the Haftorah is the Pesach from Yoshio. Ushayimos Pesach, and the rest of the days of Pesach, Malakit v'Korim and Yonosh Pesach. And then the rest of the days of Pesach, we just read different parts of the Torah that discuss Pesach. So what is this? Amar Papa Mapu, says Papa Mapu Siman, that it's can use Mapu as a siman for what these different parshas are. Rashi says, like Mapu is like Mishchu K'chulachem Tzon Im Kesev Tal Ve'esami Psalucha V'yedaber Sheba'aloscha. Okay, so it says with Papa that is what you do in the rest of the days of Pesach. So the first 2 days is basically from Parshas Emor, right? And then you have the next 4 days from Parshas, these different, assorted parts of the Torah. So Yom Tov Ha'achron Shel Pesach Kohen Vayi B'Shalach, and then on the last day of Yom Tov of Pesach, so you read Parshas B'Shalach, Umaftin Vaydaber David, and the Haftarah is Vaydaber David. Okay, Ulamachar, right, which is like I think it was like a song of David, and then the next day, Kol HaBechor, Umaftirin Od Hayom. Alright, fine. And that's the Torah portion. That's all 8 days of Pesach outside of Israel. Amar Abai says, nowadays, no G'alma L'Mikre Meshach Torah Kadesh B'chaspa P'sal B'madbra Shalach Buchra. Alright. Fine. So Abai says that nowadays the minig is to read, these are all different parshas, right? Meshach, what was Meshach? Right, Mishchu K'chulachem, exactly. Torah is Shor Kesef Oez, Kaddish is Kaddish L'Kol B'chor, B'chasba is in Kesef Tal V'Sami, etc. So these are different parshas that we read on Pesach Batzeres. On Shavuos, Shiva Shavuos. So on Shavuos we read from the Torah that talks about Shiva Shavuos, the 7 weeks that we count to Maftirin, Mechabakuk. The Haftorah is from Chabakuk. Acherim Omrim, Acherim say B'chodesh Hashlishi, that we read the part of the Torah that talks about when they got to Har Sinai. Maftirin v'Merkava, and the Haftorah is Maisim Merkava. Ve'idna nowadays the Ikatre Yomei, that there are 2 days of Din and Kitavayu, so we do both of them, right? Shiva Shavuos as well as B'chodesh Hashlishi v'Ipchavu. We do it the opposite. That the first day we read B'chodesh Hashlishi, the second day we read Shiva Shavuos. Fine. B'Rosh Hashanah and Rosh Hashanah B'chodesh Hashvi u'maftirin habin yakel Ephraim. Okay, so in Rosh Hashanah we read B'chodesh Hashvi in the 7th month. All right, and then the Haftorah is habin yakel Ephraim. All right, that Ephraim was a very precious child to me. That those who say Hashem Pakad Asar, that we read from the Torah that God remembered Sarah. Maftirin b'Chana, and Haftorah is Chana. Ve'edna nowadays the Ikatre Yomei, that we have 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. Yom Kamu ki yesh omim l'mocher ve'elokim nisas Avram u'maftirin habin Yaker. Okay, so nowadays that there are 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. So the first day is like the Yesh Omrim, that it's Vashem Pakad Asara. And then the next day it's Ve'elokim Nisas Avram, that is the what's it called, the Akedes Yitzchak. Okay, Maftirin Habin Yakir, and the Haftorah is Habin Yakir. Alright. Yom HaKippurim and Yom Kippur Korin Achremos. Alright, Maftirin Kicho Amar Ram Venisa. Alright, Uvemincha Korin Ba'arayos Maftirin Beyona. And at Mincha we read the Torah portions about the Torah talks about the forbidden relationships. And the Haftorah is Yonah, the story of Jonah. Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Yochanan, Kol makom she'atamotze gvuraso she'HaKadosh Baruch Hu, shama atamotze an v'sanuso. Says Rabbi Yochanan that wherever you find the greatness, the might, the strength of God, so that's also where you find His humility. Dov is a kosu b'Torah. We have a reference to this in the Torah, V'shoni b'Neviim. It's also in the Neviim, V'mushulish b'Ksuvim. And a third time, we see this in the writings. Kosu Torah, it says in the Torah, Ki Hashem Elokeichem, Hu Elokei Elokim V'Adonu Adonim, that Hashem your God, He is the God of all gods and the master of all masters. It says afterwards, Osu Mishpat Yosem Amon, and He does justice for orphans and widows. Shoni Banavim, we see it in the prophets as well. Ko Amar Ram V'Nisa Shochen Ad V'Kodesh Shmo V'Gomer, that so says the exalted, who lives, who dwells in the eternal realms, and He's really holy. It says afterwards, Vezdaka u'shvaruach. He talks about sort of the downtrodden and the lowly. Mishulash b'Ksuvim, and it also says in the writings, the pasuk says, Solu la'roche baravos b'kashmo. Right, like look out for the one who rides. Like the clouds and stuff? That He's the father of orphans and the judge of widows. So, alright, wherever you see God's greatness, that's also where you see His humility. Yom Tov Rishon Shachag, on the first day of Sukkot, Kohen b'Parshas Ma'adash B'Toras Kohanim, we read from the festivals in Parshas Emor, Maftirin Hine Yom Bala Hashem. Okay, and that's the Haftorah. Ve'idna nowadays Dikatre Yomei, that there are 2 days. So the Mocher Mikra Hachinami Korinun. Okay, so we still read from the Parshas Emor. Haftorah Ma'am Haftorinan. What's the Haftorah? Vayikalu el HaMelech Shlomo. Alright, that they gathered to the King Solomon. Ushar Koyim Usachag. All the other days of Sukkot, Kohen b'Karbonos L'Chag, we read about the sacrifices of the festival of Sukkot. All right. Yom Tov Achron, and on the last day of Sukkot, Sukilu Shmini Atzeres, Kol HaBechor. All right. So we read all the first points. Mitzvahs v'chukim v'choros. We talk about the different mitzvahs that are shaykh during that time of year, like leaving parts of your field for poor people and stuff. Umaftirin vayhi kichalo Shlomo. And the Haftarah is that I believe when Shlomo finished building the temple, I think. And the next day, which is Simchas Torah and Chutz La'aretz, so we read V'zos HaBracha, and okay. The Haftarah is Vayamot Shlomo. Amar Rav Huna says, Rav Huna Amar Rab, okay, in the name of Rab. Shabbos Chalios B'chulu Shamoid. So when you have Shabbos that falls on Chol HaMoed, Bein B'Pesach, Bein B'Sukkos, whether we're talking about Pesach, whether we're talking about Sukkos, Mikra Karinon Re'ei Ata. So read from the Torah Re'ei Ata. Afturi B'Pesach Ha'atzomos Ha'iveshis U'V'Sukkos Bayom Ba'Gog. Alright, and then the Haftarah, read from the Navi on Sukkah, on Pesach we read the dry bones, and on Sukkot we read about Gog. Alright. B'Chanukah b'Nisim. So on Chanukah we read from the Nisim, all the korbanos that were brought by the Chanukah Samizbeach. Maftirim b'Neiros the Zechariah. And the Haftarah is the candles of Zechariah v'Yimikla Yishtei Shabbosos, and if there are 2 Shabbos for Chanukah, so Kamaisa b'Neiros the Zechariah, Basaisa b'Neiros the Shlomo. So the first Shabbos Haftarah will be the candles of Chanukah, and the second Shabbos, the candles of Zechariah, and the second Shabbos will be the candles of Shlomo. Purim by Yavaya v'Amalek. And in Purim, we read about when Amalek came and gave us a hard time. So Rosh Chodashim, Rosh Chodshechem, and on Rosh Chodesh we read from the Torah where it says Rosh Chodshechem, Rosh Chodesh Cholios b'Shabbos. So when Rosh Chodesh falls out on Shabbos, Maftirin B'Hayir Midei Chodesh b'Chodsho. So in the Haftarah we say, and it will be every single month, Cholios b'Echa b'Shabbos. If Rosh Chodesh falls out on Sunday, so Me'esmo Maftirin. So on Shabbos, the Haftarah is the Haftarah of Machar Chodesh. Okay? Amar Rav Huna says Rav Huna Rosh Chodesh of Cholios b'Shabbos, that if the Rosh Chodesh of falls out on Shabbos, Maftirin Chodshechem u'Moadechem Sono Nafshi Hayu Olai the Torah. So we read in the Haftarah that your Rosh Chodeshes and festivals, my soul hated them. They were a burden for me. What does it mean that God's saying that your festivals, they were a burden for me? Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, says God, it's not enough that they sin before me. It's not just enough that they're nudniks, but now I have to spend my time figuring out how to punish them, and that's not something I want to be doing. But Tisha B'Av, Gufei my Maftarinon, what is the Haftarah of Tisha B'Av? Amar Rab, says Rab, Eicha Hoysa Lezona, that how it was like a harlot. I believe it's talking about Yerushalayim. Mikramai, what do we read? Tanya, we learn in the Brayso, Acherim say, Ve'im lo sishmuli, that if you don't listen to me, that's like the klaus, what's it called, the tochacha. Reb Nosson Bar Yosef Omer, Ad Onu Yinaitzuni Ha'omazeh, that until, right, by the Meraglim it says, why is this nation such nudniks? Ve'eshom, that those who say, Ad Moshe Leida Aro Azos, right, what's the deal with this, nudniki congregation? Amar Abai says, Abai idnu nog amal mikra kisol lebanim maftirin asof asifim. Says Abai that the minig is now that we read in the morning from the Torah, kisol lebanim uvnevonim v'noshantim ba'aretz, and then the haftarah is asof asifim ne'um Hashem. What is it? In anavim ba'gefen ve'ein teina ba'teinim or something. Okay. But my modos b'maaseh bereishis. So the my modos, like when the people in the cities kind of like fast and read from the Torah and stuff, to kind of support the sacrifices that are being offered in Jerusalem. So Minani, how do we know this? Amr Ba'ami. So it says Ba'ami, Ilmle my modos lo niskaimu shamayim va'aretz. If not for the Maimados, we wouldn't have the heavens and the earth. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Im lo brisa yom v'layla chukos shamayim v'aretz lo samti. If not for my covenant, day and night, so then the ways of the statutes of the heaven and the earth I did not place. And it says, Vayomer Hashem Elokim, that God says, Vayomer, what is it? Vayomar, that Avram says, Hashem Elokim, God, Bama Eda, Ki Hashana. How will I know that I will inherit Eretz Yisrael? That Avram says before God, Ribono shel olam, Master of the world, maybe the Yidden are going to sin before you, and you're going to do to them like you did to the generation of the flood and the generation, right, of the Tower of Babel. Amrlo lav. So God says no. So God says, but how do I know this? Amrlo chali egel mishuleshes v'gomer. Bring me all these animals and cut them up, i.e., so Kilu, God was saying, look, there's going to be these animal sacrifices, and these animal sacrifices are going to make everything good. So then Avram says, Master of the world, okay, korbanos sound great when there's a Beis Hamikdash. What about when there's no Beis Hamikdash? There's no korbanos. What's going to happen? So God says to Avram, say their korbanos. I already made for them the order, the ways of the korbanos. Kozman, shekorin boyin, as long as they read the korbanos, ma'le'ani alein, kilu makrivin lefanai korban. I treat it as though they're offering before me a korban, u'mochal'ani al kol avonosehim, and I forgive them for all of their deeds, for all of their sins. Wow. That as long as you read about the korbanos, and it's as if you're offering them. Wow, that's amazing. So on fast days we read about the blessings and the curses, and we do not interrupt the curses, rather just one person reads through all of them. So says the Gemara, how do we know that we do not interrupt the curses? So Amr Reb Asi the Amr Kra, because the pasuk says Musar Hashem b'ni al timos, that do not be disgusted by the musar, by the rebuke that I give you, and therefore if you interrupt the rebuke in the middle, so it's like you don't care about it. Rish Lakish Amr says Rish Lakish Lafisha and Omer bracha ala puranos, because you don't make a blessing on trouble, on something negative. So what do you do? So what you do is you have one fellow who reads all of the klalis, and he makes a bracha, the pasuk, right, but he doesn't just go right into the curses, rather he starts the pasuk before and the pasuk afterwards, that the blessing he's making is not on the curses, but it's on sort of the content before and after. Amar Abai says, Abai lo shanu ela b'klalosh b'toras kohanim, that this is only said by the curses in Vayikra. Aval klalosh of Mishnah Torah, but the curses in Sefer Devarim, posek, you can interrupt. My timer, what's the difference? Halalu b'lashon rabim amuris umoshim piagvur amarin. Well, in Vayikra, they are in lashon rabim, they are plural, and they're said by God Himself. Moshe is relaying what God said. Whereas in Devarim it's in singular, and Moshe is the one who's saying them. It's not coming straight from God, but he is sort of Moshe talking to the Yidden about what will happen if they're not being good. Levi bar Buti have a kari become a gamge kami de Rafuna. So Levi bar Buti was reading the curses, and he was very emotional. He was having a very difficult time reading through these terrible things, and it was in front of Rafuna Ba'arure, and he was reading the curses. Amar lo. So now Rafuna says to him, Hakanavshicha lo shanu ela klala sheb'toras kohanim aval sheb'mishnah Torah posek. And he says, look, when we say not to interrupt, that's specifically in Sefer Vayikra, but over here this is Sefer Devarim. If you need to, you could take a break and take a deep breath. I think it's okay. Tanya Reb Shimon ben Elazar, Omer says Reb Shimon ben Elazar, Ezra tikin loim lisosh yukarin klalish b'toras kohanim kodem atzeres v'sheb Mishnah Torah kodem Rosh Hashanah. That Ezra established for the Yidden that they should read the curses in Sefer Vayikra kodem atzeres before Shavuos, v'sheb Mishnah Torah kodem Rosh Hashanah, and in Sefer Devarim before Rosh Hashanah. My time, how come? Amar Abaye v'teimer Rish Lakish kidei shetichla Hashanah v'kiluloseh, so that you should end the year and all of its curses. B'shlomosh of Mishnah Torah, Ika kidei shetichle shana v'kil loseh. So I understand why we read the curses in Devarim, right? And we're saying it's so that we can end the year with all of its curses, because that's when Rosh Hashanah is. Ela sheb'toras kohanim atu atzeres Rosh Hashanah. But I don't understand what the curses in Vayikra have to do with Rosh Hashanah. So yes, it is Rosh Hashanah. Atzeres nami Rosh Hashanah yidetnan u'vatzeres aper seilan. Shavuos is also Rosh Hashanah, as we learned in the Mishnah, Masechta Rosh Hashanah, that on that Shavuos is the new year and the world is judged for the fruits of the trees. Tanya, we're learning a brayso. Reb Shimon ben Elazar, Omer says, Reb Shimon ben Elazar, Im yomer l'cha zikenim stor biladim b'nei. It's very interesting and also somewhat cryptic that if the elders will tell you to destroy something and the youngins will tell you to build something, stor v'al tivneh. Listen to the elders and destroy it. Do not build, do not build like the youngins are saying, which is very interesting. Mipnei shestira zikenim binyan. Because the destruction of elders is actually building. Uvinyanayim stira, and the building of the youngins is actually destroying. V'simla dav Rechavam ben Shlomo. And the sign of this is Rechavam, the son of Shlomo. This is really interesting. Really interesting. A little bit cryptic, but certainly interesting. Taner Rabbanan, there I was taught, Malkum shemafsikim b'Shabbos shachris, sham korin b'mincha. Okay, so where you leave off at Shachris on Shabbos, so then that is where you pick up where you left off at Mincha. B'Mincha, Sham Korin B'Sheni, and then on Monday, when you read from the Torah, you start reading from where you ended at Shabbos Mincha. B'Sheni, Sham Korin B'Chamishi, and where you stopped reading on Monday, so you pick up from there on Thursday. B'Chamishi, Sham Korin the Shabbos Haba, and then where you end on Thursday is where you pick up on Shabbos. Div Reb Meir, that's the opinion of Reb Meir. Reb Yehuda Omer, whereas Reb Yehuda says, Welcome shemafsikim b'Shabbos. No, where they stop Shachris, where they stop reading from the Torah in the morning on Shabbos. Sham korin b'mincha. So they pick up from there where they left off at Mincha. Uvisheni uvachamishi, as well as on Monday and Thursday, right? The Shabbos haba, as well as for the next week. Meaning, Shabbos Shachris, so you read the Parshas HaShavua, and then at Mincha, you start from where you left off, at Shachris, you read the beginning of the next Parsha, and you do the same thing on Monday and on Thursday, and then the following Shabbos, you also start at the beginning of the next Parsha, and then you read that entire Parsha. And Reb Zera says that halacha is Malkum shemafsikim b'Shabbos, that where they stop reading on Shabbos Shachris in the morning, Sham korin b'Mincha, that's where they start reading at Mincha, Uva Sheni, Uva Chamishi, Uva Shabbos Haba, as well as Monday, Thursday, and the next Shabbos, you start reading from where you left off the previous Shabbos. V'leim halacha Reb Yehuda, why don't you just say that the halacha is like Reb Yehuda? Why is Reb Zera saying like that wherever you end off at Shachris on Shabbos, that's where you pick up, at Mincha? Just say the halacha is like Reb Yehuda. That's his opinion. Mishum da'apchedu. Well, because sometimes Reb Yehuda's opinion, Reb Meir's opinion gets flipped around. So therefore, if you just say the halacha is like Reb Yehuda, wait, what is Reb Yehuda? It could be confusing what he says, because he sometimes gets flipped around with Reb Meir, I guess specifically on this halacha. So therefore, says Reb Zera, so Reb Zera just kind of spells out what the halacha is, and that is that where you left off at Shabbos Shachris, so that's where you pick up. That's where you pick up, and you start at Mincha, Monday, Thursday, as well as the next Shabbos. Friends, that is Lamed Aleph of Masechta Megillah. It was very interesting. We got to a new Mishnah where we basically laid out all the things that we read on the different Yom Tovim, which is very, very interesting. And then we had at the end over here this interesting thing about the machlokas between Reb Meir and Reb Yehuda, about that Reb Meir says that where you end off reading on Shabbos Shacharis, so you pick up from there at Mincha, and then from wherever you end there, you pick up at Monday, and wherever you end there, you pick up on Thursday, wherever you end there, you pick up the following Shabbos. So Reb Yehuda does, I think, like what we do, or at least what I've always done, which is that you read the whole parsha in the morning on Shacharis, and then you kind of read the first part of the next parsha on Shabbos at Mincha, as well as on Monday and Thursday, and then you read the entire next parsha on the next Shabbos. Friends, that was the Lamed Aleph of Masechet Megillah. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out.